Imagine driving alone on a dark, endless highway, when suddenly, the world around you twists into something unrecognizable. The radio crackles with a chilling whisper. Shadows crawl at the edge of your vision. You try to escape, but the road traps you in a nightmare you never saw coming. One wrong turn, one moment of fear, and everything changes forever. What happened on that terrifying night? What haunted that endless drive? Stay with me, because this story will grip you and won't let go. If you love real spine-chilling stories like this, make sure to follow and support this channel. Hit subscribe and never miss the next terrifying chapter. I've done more night drives than I care to count. Working as a freelance audio tech means leaving venues at all hours, usually long after everyone else is asleep. It's quiet work, peaceful even. Just me, the road, and some late-night classic rock on low volume. But this one still keeps me up at night. It was just after 1 a.m., a Tuesday, and I was heading west on a stretch of Route 19 between Asheville and some tiny Tennessee town I can't even remember now. No streetlights, just miles of pine trees on both sides, swaying gently under the breeze. My high beams cut through the dark, revealing patches of road that felt like they hadn't been driven on in years. I was sipping lukewarm coffee from a gas station cup when I saw him. At first, I thought it was just a mile marker or some signpost, until it moved. A man was standing on the shoulder of the road facing the woods. He wasn't hitchhiking. He wasn't waving. He wasn't walking. Just standing, completely still, like he'd been there a long time. He wore a light gray hoodie with the hood up, arms hanging limp at his sides. I slowed slightly instinctively and passed him at around 40 miles per hour. I glanced at him through the passenger side window, but his head was turned away from me. I didn't see his face. Not once. He just stared into the trees. I kept driving. About 10 minutes later, I shook it off. Maybe he was camping. Maybe he got lost. Maybe none of my business. I turned the music up a notch, trying to fill the silence that was now beginning to feel just a little too loud. And then I saw him again. Same gray hoodie, same stance, same spot on the right shoulder, staring into the trees. My foot came off the gas immediately. I looked in my rearview mirror, heart climbing into my throat. But the road behind me was empty. No car had passed. No one could have gotten ahead of me without me seeing it. This was a dead stretch with only one lane going each way and no turnoffs for miles. I kept telling myself I was mistaken. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe someone else just happened to dress the same. Maybe, but the thing is, the way he stood, the way the headlights caught the exact same folds in his hoodie, the way he didn't flinch, didn't turn, didn't move an inch. It wasn't someone like him. It was him. And I hadn't stopped. Not once. By the time I passed the second figure, my hands were shaking on the wheel. I checked the time again. 1:18 a.m. My mouth was dry. I reached for the coffee but nearly dropped it. My pulse was in my ears. I told myself I wouldn't look at the side of the road again. I'd just keep going. Just keep the wheels turning. One town over. That's all I needed to get to. But then a few miles later, I saw a third one. Same hoodie, same stance, same spot. And this time he was facing me. His face was obscured by the hood, but his chin was tilted upward, like he was staring right into the glare of my headlights, like he was waiting. I blinked. For a split second, I thought he might step into the road. He didn't, but that was somehow worse. I drove past him, teeth clenched so hard I thought I'd crack a molar. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. And I didn't look back. Not then. Not ever again. I spotted the gas station like a mirage. A flickering red neon sign buzzed in the dark, casting a dull glow over two ancient pumps and a small convenience store that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. The sign read, "Walker's Gas and Go." I hadn't seen a single building for nearly 20 miles. My tank was still half full, but after seeing that figure 3 times, I needed a break. I needed to get out of the car, breathe something other than the recycled air in my Civic. I pulled in slowly, gravel crunching beneath my tires. The place was completely empty. No other cars, no music, just the soft hum of the overhead lights straining to stay alive. The doorbell jingled as I stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Dust, burnt coffee, and something faintly metallic. An old man sat behind the counter, skin like yellowed parchment, white hair slicked back tight against his head. He didn't look up when I entered, just kept reading a worn magazine like I wasn't even there. "Evening," I said, trying to sound casual. "Nothing." I walked to the back to grab a bottled water. Every cooler buzzed like a dying wasp, and half the drinks looked expired. I found something without visible dust on the cap and made my way back to the counter. The old man still didn't look up. I placed the water down. He finally blinked. "You're headed west," he said. Not a question. I hesitated. "Yeah." He nodded once, slowly, like the word tasted bitter in his mouth. "Don't stay on Route 19. That stopped me. I furrowed my brow. "Sorry, what?" He looked up at me now, eyes sunken and yellow around the edges. His voice was flat, cold. "After dark, don't stay on Route 19. I let out a nervous laugh, more out of instinct than anything. "Why's that?" He blinked slowly again, then repeated the sentence. "Because they don't like headlights." The words hit me like a slap. Not just what he said, but how he said it. No emphasis, no inflection. Like he was repeating a fact he'd said 100 times before and stopped expecting anyone to listen. I stared at him. Who doesn't? But he didn't answer. He just rang up the water, pushed it toward me, and returned to his magazine. As I walked out, I looked back once. He was already reading again, like I'd never been there. Outside, the wind had picked up. Pine branches swayed along the edges of the lot. I scanned the tree line. Nothing. I climbed into my car, locked the doors, and pulled out back onto the road. My headlights cut a narrow path ahead, and I noticed for the first time how dark it really was out there. No moon, no stars, just the road, and the feeling that I wasn't driving alone anymore. 20 minutes down the road, I started to feel it. That crawling sensation at the back of your neck, the kind you can't ignore, like something is watching you, even though you know it's not possible. I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, telling myself it was nothing. That's when I saw the headlights. Two soft beams in the distance, far behind me. They appeared over a hill I'd just crossed, growing larger with each mile. I didn't think much of it at first. Just another night driver. Maybe a trucker. Maybe someone heading home late like me. But the lights didn't waver. They didn't get closer, didn't fall back. They just kept their distance. Always the same, about 2 car lengths behind. I changed lanes. So did they. I sped up a little. So did they. 10 miles later, they were still there. I finally got a better look in the mirror. It was a white sedan. Couldn't make out the make or model, but it was small. Tinted windows. No front plate. No distinguishing marks. Just a plain, featureless, white car, tailing me like a shadow. I started switching lanes erratically, slowing down, speeding up, pulling into the shoulder for a second, and back out again. The sedan mirrored everything I did, like it was glued to my bumper. I tried brushing it off. Maybe it was someone nervous driving at night. Maybe they thought I was the creep. But deep down, I didn't believe that. It didn't feel like coincidence. It felt like intent. There was an exit coming up, a sharp off-ramp that led to a smaller highway I'd never taken before. Normally, I'd stay on the main road straight through, but something in me snapped. I veered onto the ramp without signaling, tires squealing as I rounded the curve. I checked the mirror. The white sedan flew past the exit, continuing straight. I exhaled, my whole body shaking. Relief washed over me like a wave. I even laughed. Just a small, broken sound. I knew I probably looked crazy. But 2 minutes later, just as I was easing back into a steady pace, I saw something ahead. Tail lights. Not just any tail lights. The same white sedan was now on the side road I had turned onto. Parked, empty, hazards blinking, slow and steady. As I drove past, my breath caught in my throat. The driver's side door was wide open, and there was no one inside. I didn't stop. Not even for a second. I pressed the gas pedal harder, tires humming against the cracked pavement of this unfamiliar side road. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned pale. That white sedan, how had it gotten ahead of me? There were no connecting roads, no overpasses, no shortcuts. It didn't make sense. The blinking hazard lights faded in my rear view, but the unease didn't. If anything, it was getting worse. The trees lining the road were thicker here, taller, leaning in like they were trying to close in around me. I kept scanning the edges of the forest, half expecting to see that figure again. Gray hoodie, head tilted. Nothing. And then I saw the tunnel. It wasn't marked. No signs, no warning. Just a gaping black mouth carved through the hillside. Old bricks lining the arched entrance. My headlights barely reached inside. It looked narrow and abandoned. A one-way pass with no lights, no indication of how far it went. I considered turning back, but the thought of driving past that empty sedan again made my blood run cold. So I went in. As soon as I entered the tunnel, my cell signal vanished. The radio hissed into static. The only sound was my tires echoing against damp stone. The light from my headlights hit the curved ceiling and nothing else. There was no exit in sight. I kept going. 30 seconds passed, then a minute, then two. Still no end. Just the same stretch of narrow tunnel over and over again, as if I were stuck in a loop. I tapped the brakes once, then again. My car slowed. I stared ahead, squinting into the dark. My headlights should have revealed an exit by now. That's when I saw movement, not ahead of me, behind, in the rearview mirror. A figure stepped into the center of the tunnel behind my car. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, but then it moved again, slowly, deliberately, walking toward me. Same gray hoodie, same limp arms, face completely hidden, only now, it was inside the tunnel. I slammed the accelerator. The car surged forward, engine whining, wheels screeching against the wet concrete. My pulse was in my throat. I kept my eyes locked on the space ahead, desperate for the tunnel to end. Then finally I saw it. A slit of light. The exit. As I burst out of the tunnel and into the night air, I felt something deep in my chest unclench. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Not after what I thought I saw in the mirror just before I exited. There wasn't just one figure anymore. There were three, standing shoulder to shoulder, still, watching. I didn't care where I was anymore. I just needed to get off the road. I kept driving until I spotted a crooked metal sign lit by a flickering light bulb. Hollow Pines Motel. Vacancy. It sat perched on a low ridge overlooking a dense patch of forest, like someone had cut it out of the woods with a rusty blade and forgotten about it. The building was a long, single-story strip of rooms, each with a chipped teal door and a plastic lawn chair sitting out front. Only one other car was in the lot, a beat-up pickup with no license plate and a shattered taillight. Still, it felt safer than the tunnel, safer than the road. I pulled into the lot, parked near the office, and stepped out into the cool night air. The silence was thicker here, heavier, like the trees were pressing against the sky to smother any sound. I tried not to look at the forest line behind the building. Inside, the office smelled like mothballs and mildew. A small bell sat on the counter next to a logbook and an ashtray full of cigarette butts. A faded calendar on the wall was still set to October of the previous year. An old woman appeared from the back, her eyes pale and watery, lips pressed into a flat line. She didn't ask for ID, just handed me a key marked Room 6. "Heat don't work," she muttered. "That's fine," I said, "just for the night." As I walked out, she added without looking at me, "Don't open the curtains after midnight." I stopped mid-step. "What?" She didn't answer, just disappeared into the back room again, the door swinging shut behind her with a creak that sounded far too loud in the stillness. I made my way down the strip to Room 6. It was the second to last unit at the far end, right next to the forest. The key turned with a stubborn click. The room inside was exactly what I expected. Dim, cold, and heavy, with the smell of old carpet and bleach. A small TV sat on a table in the corner, glowing faintly with static. The curtains were already drawn over the window. I locked the door, then bolted it, then pushed the dresser against it just for good measure. I didn't even turn on the lights. I just crawled into the bed, fully dressed, shoes on, eyes wide open. Somewhere in the distance, a car passed by, or maybe it didn't. It could have been wind through the trees. Could have been something else. I glanced at the old clock on the nightstand. 11:58 p.m. I stared at the ceiling, listened. No footsteps, no voices, just the faint hum of the TV. Then just as the clock turned 12:01, I heard it, a soft rustle, from behind the curtains, like fingertips brushing the fabric from the outside. And then a whisper, low, breathless, right at the glass. Room 6. I froze. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My eyes locked on the window, curtains still drawn tight, swaying ever so slightly. I strained my ears, heart pounding like it was trying to punch through my ribs. Silence. Maybe I imagined it. Then, another whisper. Closer this time. Let me in. It came from just inches beyond the glass. I sat up slowly, keeping my body low, hands shaking as I reached for the nightstand. I grabbed the room key. Why? I didn't know. Maybe because it felt like the only thing that proved I was still here, still grounded in something real. The whisper came again, longer, drawn out. Let me in. I didn't dare move. My thoughts scrambled to the woman at the front desk. Don't open the curtains after midnight. Why? What happens if I do? The rustling stopped. Dead silence. I waited, counting in my head. 5 seconds, 10, 20, and then came the knock. One slow, hollow tap on the glass. Then two more. Rhythmic, patient. The kind of knock someone uses when they're not in a hurry, when they already know you'll answer eventually. I got off the bed, keeping low, inching toward the bathroom. There was no lock on that door, but it felt safer than out here, safer than by the window. I ducked inside, closed the door, and sat on the cold tile floor, trying to breathe quietly. Another knock. Then, the doorknob rattled. Not the front door, the bathroom door. I stared at it, blood draining from my face. It rattled again, harder this time. That wasn't possible. I had just closed it. There was no one else in the room. Then I heard the voice, whispering right outside the door. Why'd you look? I hadn't. I hadn't looked. I told myself that, over and over. But something else moved then. In the mirror, behind me. I turned slowly, shaking so bad I thought my knees might give out. The reflection wasn't mine. It was someone else standing in my place. Hood up, head tilted, no face. Just darkness. And it was smiling. I don't remember leaving the motel. 1 second I was staring at that thing in the mirror, frozen with fear. The next I was back in my car, engine running, windshield fogged up from the inside. My hands were on the wheel, but I didn't remember starting the ignition. I didn't even remember unlocking the door. The dashboard clock said 2:46 a.m. I sat there dazed, headlights casting two dim cones across the motel parking lot. Room 6 looked normal. The curtains were closed. The door was shut. No signs of forced entry. No shadows. No whispers. No proof. I told myself to drive. Just drive. Get home. Get away from this town, this road, this night. I didn't care if I had to sleep in my car until morning. But as I turned onto the main road again, something was off. The air looked thicker. Almost like fog, but not quite. It clung low to the ground, swaying unnaturally, like it was breathing. The road signs looked faded, warped, like they hadn't been touched in decades. I passed a diner I could have sworn I'd seen an hour earlier, with the same flickering, open 24 hours sign and the same old Buick parked out front. I turned down a different road, trying to shake the feeling. 5 minutes later, the same diner appeared again. Same sign, same Buick, same exact cracks in the pavement. I drove faster, more turns, more desperate detours. But no matter which way I went, I kept ending up back at that same intersection with the same diner. I wasn't just lost, I was looping. My phone still had no signal. The GPS map was frozen. It showed me on a blank gray grid. No streets, no markers, just a blue dot blinking in place. I stopped the car, got out. The night was dead quiet, too quiet. Not even the sound of insects or wind. The trees didn't move. The air didn't shift. That's when I noticed something across the road. A payphone. Just standing there. No booth. Just the phone. Bolted to a rusted metal pole in the middle of nowhere. It rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. And then it stopped. I didn't touch it. I got back in the car and locked the doors, heart hammering. As I looked up, I saw something in my rearview mirror. The back seat. There was a shape. Small. Curled up. I turned slowly. The seat was empty, but the fabric was warm. I didn't want to stop again. I told myself I'd keep driving until sunrise. Just keep the wheels moving. But when the payphone rang a second time, somewhere down a different stretch of road, standing out there again like it had followed me, I hit the brakes. I didn't mean to. My foot just reacted. The phone rang again. Steady. Unchanging. I stared at it through the windshield, my hands trembling on the wheel. There was no way it could be the same phone. No booth. No wiring. Just a lone pole standing on the edge of the asphalt, surrounded by dead brush and nothing else. Then the ringing stopped. Silence. I sighed. My nerves were frayed thin, my head pounding. And then, my car radio clicked on. I hadn't touched it. It buzzed with faint static, the dial spinning on its own before settling on a dead frequency. I reached to turn it off, and that's when I heard the voice. A girl. Barely a whisper, but clear as day. Don't stop next time. I yanked my hand away. The radio cut off. I sat there gripping the wheel, staring straight ahead. Then, headlights in my rearview mirror, another car, a white sedan, same make, same color, same broken passenger side mirror. It wasn't moving, just idling in the middle of the road, 100 feet behind me, its engine silent, no driver in sight. I couldn't take it anymore. I floored the gas pedal and tore down the road, tires screaming. I didn't care if I missed a turn or ran out of gas. I just needed to get away from that car, that phone, this place. But no matter how far I went, I couldn't shake the feeling. Something was in the car with me, not in the back seat, not beside me, inside me. That same voice, quiet and steady, whispering just beneath the sound of the engine. You shouldn't have looked in the mirror. I blinked. Road signs were gone. My headlights showed nothing ahead but empty dark, and the gas gauge back to full, like I'd never left.
I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles white. The road stretched ahead like an endless ribbon of black asphalt swallowed by shadows. Every mile felt heavier, like I was driving deeper into a nightmare with no escape. The white sedan was still behind me, motionless, its headlights off now. I blinked, trying to convince myself it was just my eyes playing tricks in the dark. But then it moved. Slowly. Gliding closer without sound. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stop the car and run. But my foot stayed on the gas, pushing me forward. Ahead, the road curved sharply, bordered by thick trees leaning overhead. Suddenly, the headlights caught something. A man. Standing in the middle of the road. He wore a gray hoodie. Head tilted to one side. Arms limp at his sides. No face. I slammed on the brakes. The car screeched to a halt just inches from him. I stared, breath frozen. Then he raised a hand. Slowly, deliberately. Pointing. Behind me. I risked a glance in the rearview mirror. The white sedan was gone. The back seat empty. But the radio crackled back to life. The voice whispered again. You can't leave. I didn't wait. I slammed the gear into reverse, spinning tires on the gravel, and blasted backward off the road into the thick woods. Branches whipped against the windows, scraping metal as I fought to keep control. The engine roared, shaking like it might explode. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Not soft. Not hesitant. Heavy and fast. The trees blurred past as I pushed deeper into the forest, heart pounding, breath ragged. I dared a quick glance back. No man in the hoodie. No white sedan. Nothing but thick shadows. I turned the wheel sharply and found a narrow dirt path leading downhill. I didn't care where it went. As I sped down, headlights caught an old abandoned gas station. Its sign was flickering. Out of gas. I killed the engine. Silence. I sat frozen, listening. The radio stayed dead. The forest held its breath. Then the door creaked open. A cold wind blew through the broken windows. And I heard it again. That voice. Not a whisper. A calm, steady voice. Welcome back.